Hi, my name's Phil Szomszor, and I'm joined today by AI for Media founder Harriet Meyer. How are you doing, Harriet?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. Delighted to be here.
Wonderful. Well, we're here to talk about the craft of communication, and that's finding your voice and using it with impact. And obviously, you're coming at this from an AI angle, and we're going to have loads of interesting questions to ask you. But before we do that, can you just talk to us a little bit about your business, what you do for clients, and how you got into the space? Because you come from a journalism background.
Yes, so I'm Harriet Meyer. I'm founder of AI for Media, and I train news content and PR teams to use AI without losing their minds or their humanity in the process. And I've been in journalism for more than 20 years, as you mentioned. So I started in journalism a long time ago at the Daily Telegraph back in 2002, which feels like another era now. So I've worked across lots of different nationals, and I've watched the industry change dramatically over the years and obviously come under enormous pressure as well. And I really came to AI when ChatGPT landed at the end of 2022. I sort of had a bit of a dabble, chucked a prompt in, saw what it produced, got slightly terrified, and decided to kind of get ahead of this next curve and bridge the gap between what's often frankly terrifying technology and the media industry, which is my heart and soul really. So my aim is very much to empower people to use AI to enhance and streamline what they already do and kind of find their place in what comes next. So it's about encouraging curiosity, which generally people in this industry have, so that we can use our skills and better them really, and it's both terrifying and exciting in equal measure, I would say, and I want to find a way to ensure that the terrifying bit doesn't win.
And in some ways, it's kind of a parallel to what I've done with social media, because I come from that background. I started in PR, and that would have been probably 2007-8, when people were also having similar conversations about what was then Twitter and now X, and that's gone into a different direction, but about how we use blogging and social media accounts for the better. So I think there's some interesting parallels which we can perhaps cover. But let's dive into some of the questions, and we'll come on to the fear stuff maybe a little bit later and how we tackle that. But if you're a marketeer or a salesperson, or you work in communications in some form, why should we be really leaning into these AI tools today? Because I think some people haven't been as proactive as you have, or as curious as you have, and they might be sitting there thinking, what's the benefit? How can this help me become a better communicator?
Yeah. So for starters, if you're in any kind of communication, if you're in the communication world, you're essentially brilliantly placed to use AI really well, because it works with natural language. So it's using your own skill set, your kind of superpower, to enhance that. And the ability to be able to describe what you want clearly in natural language is exactly what you need. Is essentially briefing AI as you might already do every day. And where it gets really interesting is where you can use AI as a thinking partner. So as an ability to pick gaps in your communication thinking, to communicate your message more clearly to your audience. And AI is brilliant at taking on different personas, for example, and pushing back and finding ways to tackle problems and your message in a way that perhaps a human wouldn't be able to, because AI essentially works differently to us. And so it's not a threat to your thinking, it's more a complementary tool to use alongside it.
I sometimes think of the tools that I use as being like super smart, slightly naughty interns, because they're so clever in what they do, but they sometimes do things I don't ask them to do. But it's great to have that person, that AI sitting next to you, being able to do some of those things. There we go. I'm making them like people already. But and one of the things I saw in your newsletter was you were talking about the growth of storytellers within organizations, which is kind of in response or in complement to the growth of AI. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So it's not necessarily explicitly stated that this is in response to AI, but it's it clearly is, in that, a lot of large like tech and compliance firms, for example, are putting out ads for storytellers with, pretty vast pay packages, to be honest. And I kind of did a little cheer really when I saw this, because it is essentially our skill set, isn't it? It's, audiences
Mm.
are overwhelmed with information, and AI slot is a real thing, and we've got more information than ever. People are tired. We're like, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty exhausted by just the amounts we're meant to be consuming in terms of just general information. And you want to cut through this and find something that really resonates and that you can relate to. And I think that's why storytellers has come to the forefront as like this exciting new role. It's always been around, like humans have been telling stories for our entire existence, but this is a way to kind of cut through, to make ideas feel human, less generic, to find the narrative, to find that connection, which AI frankly can't do in the same way that we can.
And I think, I come from a PR background, you from a journalism background, and I think for both of us and our peer group, it's like you couldn't be in a better place to be able to do that. But I think there's also opportunities for people that work in sales. We do a lot of work with salespeople, and I think they actually struggle quite a lot with this stuff, because a traditional salesperson is great in person, they're great at pitching, they're great at writing proposals and being out and about, pressing the flesh, as it were, but actually sometimes struggle to do what they find quite natural in person in a virtual setting. So I think there's some advantages there as well for them to kind of adopt that thinking, even if they're not the chief storyteller.
Yeah, I think it's a really important skill now to lean into that ability as well, and encourage that creation of our own experiences living in the world.
And one of the things that we spoke about briefly before when we had our catch up was, and I've seen this in your post a little bit as well, is this aspect of where, despite all of the evangelization that you're doing and how you're sort of championing the use of AI responsibly and creatively, there are elements that you still feel uncomfortable about. Can you talk to those and how that might affect your work and how you speak to other people about it as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I try not to be evangelical about AI for that very reason, is that I'm very conflicted. And I think that's actually a healthy place to be, and it's something I bring to my work now. And I think that's also the journalist in me, is I'm naturally quite skeptical, but I'm also very positive, and I try to mix those things. And AI is really deeply uneasy, as to be honest, a lot in life will do that's challenging. And it's challenging on so many different levels. So fundamentally, it's challenging what it is to be human. At a very foundational level, it's mimicking our skills. As we spoke about earlier, you almost, it's like the personification of AI. And I do feel deep unease about challenging who we are. Like, AI is trained on everything we've essentially ever written and said, and all the work that we've created. And it's mimicking our thinking, our language, the foundations of who we are. So when something can do that, it raises ethical questions. Should we even be developing this technology? And then there's also the really concrete concerns as well, the huge ones, the environmental impact, that's been widely documented, the water usage. There's lots that I feel very strongly about, with in terms of the fresh water being used to cool data centers, and the AI arms race, the tech giants competing against each other. Does it need to be this fast? No, it doesn't. Should we be slowing down? Absolutely, yes. Should there be more understanding of what AI is and its dangers? Yes. Should governments be doing more? Yes. All these questions and problems, there are so many. And also, it doesn't account for, the threats with AI, the risk of misinformation, the scams, the political overreach, the impact on power. And we can see this anyway in the world, with so many different forces at play now, and AI is just one of them. Political misuse, there's so many different examples there as well. But I've really battled with all this because of what I now do. But the way that I think about it is that it's better that somebody like me is coming to it from a skeptical, realistic standpoint and is learning as much as they can, rather than the people who built it and are making, are fundamentally pushing for the sides of it, which I don't think are good uses of AI. And actually, I'm bringing my editorial judgment to it and a moral compass, which we need good humans to actually get involved in this world. And so that's where I'm coming at it from.
When I hear all that, you kind of go, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
What
It's terrible.
what can little old me do in a shed in Hertfordshire about all of this? It's quite daunting. And I think for me, the answer to that question is around education and usage, and
Yes.
making it, trying to understand how it works and how it can impact you.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can be informed or tell other people about it or campaign unless
No.
it comes from a place of
No.
understanding. And I think that's a lot of people just got their head in the sand, haven't they? So
Yeah, and it's like anything, that fundamentally it is here. It is going to change the way that we work and the way that we live. And it's not that it's about taking some of our power back as well, in terms of, if we can learn about it and use it to ways that enhance our lives, and with, using it in a responsible way and actually understanding it, then at least we've got some kind of power over our own use of it, rather than just, as you say, like burying your head in the sand or hoping it's going to go away, because it's not going to. And can we fundamentally stop the advancements of AI? No. So it's really getting on board with actually finding our place in using it effectively.
I mean, one of the ones that I've had recently, you mentioned misinformation there in your kind of
Diatribe
of some of the issues. I wasn't going to use that word. Outline, thesis, hypothesis.
I could go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, me too. I mean, and we're trying to sort of do this in a practical and positive way. But one of the ones that I've seen recently that's really bugging me is around misinformation, and around, in my world, looking at how you can help people use LinkedIn more effectively. There's an awful lot of rubbish out there from so-called LinkedIn experts, my peer group effectively. And what they're all doing is they're just using LLMs to write up advice.
Yeah.
But the trouble is it's writing up advice based on advice, based on advice, based on advice.
Yes.
And the people that started it off haven't done the work properly in the first place.
Yeah.
And it just gets worse and worse and worse. This is how misinformation spreads. And that's just a tiny, let's face it, not important in the scheme of things. It's not like politics or health or these other bigger issues, but it is a problem.
And you've kind of nailed it in terms of it. It's a small issue, but it's potentially one that could become an enormous issue because of the snowball effect of the misinformation that's being fed back essentially to these language models. And this is where responsible AI use is important, because if you the way to use AI effectively is applying your own critical thinking at the stages of the process that are vital. So it's coming at it. What do you think? What are actually your skills? What's the answer to this question that you're trying to find the answer to, or that you're trying to? What's your workflow going to be that is actually effective? And then slotting AI into that process, so you're not offloading your thinking to AI. You're using it to push you into corners that you haven't perhaps gone to, and structure your thinking. I think that's what it's really good at, is it's kind of pushing back to, in a way, because we go off, as I'm proving now, we go off on tangents, and we think in different ways, and it's beautiful the way that human beings do think, and our brains are unique. AI is much more of a machine mind in breaking things down in a logical manner, which can be very helpful. But like you say, if you're not critically thinking about its output, the damage could be done.
Yeah, and I think there's an add-on to that, I would say, is also making sure that you retain the humanity in what you're saying and the content that you're putting out. I mean, I'm using it in the context of an LLM and producing content, but AI will very much streamline things and will make things very similar. And even if you're using it to edit your work, and I think, as you just said, it's about having your own boundaries, pushing back, and making sure that actually, if you want to use a metaphor or you want to phrase something in a way that feels more like you, it is your voice. You shouldn't try to have to feel like you have to conform to a certain style of writing or putting yourself out there. So I think, just to your point, it's just taking control.
Yeah, I think it's like you've said there about finding your voice.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say finding your voice is that's the key, isn't it? Is you've got to find your voice and your communication style and really be strong in that, because the danger is offloading your communication to AI is going to strip out your voice and your personality. So it's really working on that alongside using AI to help you with your work.
And one of the other aspects of this that I wanted to discuss with you briefly is around the embarrassment factor using these tools. Because I think a lot of people in our professions and related professions feel like if it's almost like trying a gotcha around AI usage. Oh, that person's using an M dash and all those other kind of boring things. Or, well, I did this all myself. I didn't use ChatGPT to write it. Where should we be embarrassed about using these AI tools? And if not, how do we overcome that embarrassment?
I think it's through education that, really, if you're using AI to write and offload your thinking, as we've said, that's where there is an embarrassment to it, and that's not the way to use AI. It's almost entirely reputational and anxiety, embarrassment, isn't it, though? It's that thinking of feeling like you're cheating. I hear this a lot. If I use AI, I'm cheating. Or being lazy or inauthentic, which is interesting because, nobody's embarrassed about necessarily using Grammarly or Thesaurus or whatever, and different ways of using different tools at different parts of the process. But I think you've got to, the word authentic comes up a lot in the AI world. And I think where people use AI in private and perform authenticity in public was where it can go wrong. I always think, encourage people, be open about your AI use, because I've seen it all the way along. And initially when I got into AI, particularly journalists, very wary of, and still are quite wary about saying they use AI, but that's not sustainable in the effectively the AI driven world we are currently in. So don't be embarrassed, but think about how you're using it and state how you're using it well and share those use cases.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, actually. And it's only one I've done recently for the first time myself. I did a big article around that 360 brew and algorithm stuff on LinkedIn recently, and it took me ages to do it. I put a lot of work into it, but I couldn't have done it without AI. I mean, they've got all of these very technical papers using a variety of tools, and I found Notebook LM actually a really helpful one to get through the kind of meat of it and ignore all the things around. But then I've also checked it with Copilot and used other tools to kind of work them together. But I couldn't have done that myself. I mean, there's no way.
No.
I haven't got the technical expertise to do it. So, but I did state I have used Notebook LM,
and that's a brilliant example. Yeah, it's a brilliant. I think where the slight, I don't want to say ignorance, but where the misunderstanding comes about. People think AI, writing for you, doing your job for you. That's not the best use of AI. The best use of AI is just how you've described it there, it's using its skills to analyze, find patterns, push back, structure your thinking, all these different uses. And for campaign planning, for strategy, it's absolutely phenomenal. And there are different versions of AI, like you just mentioned, Notebook LM, which is particularly powerful for that kind of data synthesis and multimodal output. But yeah, I once had a journalist say, I never touch AI. And I just said, well, do you have a phone? And do you use Netflix? And do you, all these different things? Because fundamentally, we are all using AI. So it's about understanding this is generative AI. It's a different form of AI. It's the latest form of AI. And it is the most challenging, but that's why it's also very important to learn about it.
Well, I mean, this is recorded on Riverside FM, which will use AI to give me some clips based upon your best sound bites. And I'll go into that. Chances are, 8 times out of 10, it'll give me a really good soundbite because it understands the language, and I'll put the whole thing up. But actually, the clips It's much better if it's done by the AI, just on a first pass at least. So
but you're listening during this conversation, and you will remember maybe a certain part of it that, like, oh, you'll be like, that might make a really good clip. It's like an interview, any kind of interview or transcript. You want to have your brain engaged during it, and then you kind of find the clips and you pull them out yourself. But the AI might be able to support you in that process if you say forgotten something or you can't find where it is, or that sort of thing as well.
And what other tips would you have for people to get this right? I mean, we've talked about a few already, but what else would you add on to that if you're giving advice to people perhaps making a start or getting over some of those initial fears?
Yeah, I would say start small. AI can be really overwhelming, so definitely start small and start with something you already do. Write down your tasks and your workflows that you do regularly, week in, week out, whether that's like drafting a pitch or summarizing a meeting, for example, anything simple like that. Pick one and find the way that AI can help with that, and get good at that before you then expand on to the next use case. And think about where you get stuck as well. Parts of your job that you don't enjoy, maybe when you want to tailor the same message to lots of different audiences, to lots of different publications. AI is very good at taking on personas. You could ask it to take on your client, your editor, skeptical stakeholder, get it to push back on your thinking. But the broader process, I would say, is don't just jump into ChatGPT or whatever and just try and give it everything. Just step back, write down use your brain, critically think about your processes and your work, and start from there, as from the ground up. Where I see people going wrong is which is fairly standard, is a company has just rolled out Copilot or ChatGPT licenses to all their employees and just said, right, crack on, experiment. You really do need a strategic approach to AI use, and that's what I help people with in training. Get specific and actually adapt it to your workflow so that you can actually enhance and streamline what you do, rather than, because there is the risk that AI can actually slow you down if you're not using it well. And don't try to automate or use AI for everything from day one.
What I find difficult is keeping up with all of the different tools and knowing which ones to use in different instances. And they do evolve quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
So I probably started from an LLM perspective with ChatGPT, and now I'm experimenting with a few others and seeing some pros and cons. But it's exhausting and quite hard. And image generation is one that I find really difficult, because I think actually they all seem to be good, but they're not actually. So I don't know, what's your advice around that for people like me that have been perhaps in it a little bit more and started to experiment and finding it quite difficult keeping on top of everything?
Yeah, I would say don't try and keep on top of everything. I think that's, again, where people go a bit wrong and get so easily overwhelmed, is you can't, even the people making the large language models can't and admit they can't keep on top of all the developments. It's just focus on one model that works for you. Maybe add, like, say, for example, it could be any of the large language models. So take Claude, ChatGPT, Copilot, or Gemini. Just pick one, get good at it as a starting point. Use it for all its different strengths that you can find within it. Don't kind of try and use all of them once. Then maybe add on one research tool like Notebook LM or Perplexity. Then you could also maybe an image model, Gemini's, I hate awful words, but Nano Banana, that's its image model, but it's particularly powerful. You could try that one. You can use it in Notebook LM. You could create a slide deck in Notebook LM that's based on that image model, which is really good. And you can now edit those slides as well, I think yesterday, which is also a great tip. But yeah, just don't overwhelm yourself. Just pick one for each use case and go from there.
Yeah, good advice. Okay, I think we're straight out. I think it's probably time to do some quick fire questions. We'll have a bit of an AI feel. So I need to get my bit of paper for this, which I have got next to me for once, rather than hidden away. Okay, so this is a related one for that. So you'll hate me for asking this, but what is your favorite LLM for helping with writing? for you personally?
Well, Claude, human tone, and yeah, it's well known for having the best ability when it comes to writing. Yeah, but again, not to rely on it.
Okay, good. I had to caveat that one. So, what is the piece of marketing or business lingo that you would like to banish from the lexicon, and why?
Oh, there's too many. Circle back, touch base, take this offline, all the usual suspects. But my new least favourite, which is ironic given what I do, is here's the thing. And that's because that's very likely to be very likely to be AI generated, and it's deeply irritating.
I've hated that one for a while.
It's everywhere
one
now.
that came out around the same time. Yeah, it is, isn't it? One that's a bit similar to that was being used. Actually, it hasn't been used for a while, but it was very popular for a bit. Was where people would put in brackets "whisper." So it's like
Yeah.
Claude isn't actually very good at writing whisper. And then sort of like it's like a sort of secret between people. I just found that incredibly cringy, a bit like here's the thing.
Yeah.
So there we go. Okay. And if you had to rely on an LLM as a soulmate on a desert island, which one would you choose?
Claude, generally the best communicator, doesn't gaslight me, tells me when I'm asking it too many questions. Sometimes I've trained Claude to push back on my questioning, so actually that it's particularly helpful.
Well, I think you're off the hook now for the quick fire questions, but I've got one more to ask you just at the end. But thank you for joining us and giving us all your expertise. And if people want to find out more about you and where to get you to help them with adopting AI in their business, how can they do that?
The best place would be LinkedIn. So just Harriet Meyer AI for Media on LinkedIn, and I write a newsletter called AI for Media as well, aimed at journalists, PRs, and communications professionals who want to use these tools. And yeah, worth a subscribe if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, top newsletter. Absolutely recommend that one. So yeah, I'll put the in the description below. I'll put the link into your account there on LinkedIn, and people can find your newsletter.
Thank you.
Nice and easily. Thank you very much. And what the final question is: what is your motto in life?
The only time you have is now.
That's a good one. All right. We shall leave it there. That's a great place to finish. Thank you so much, Harriet. It's been lovely speaking to you.
Thank you so much, Phil. Really enjoyed that.
Okay, well, let's just play the music.